Oops. Ah, okay. So now, as you started recording, you said to me like Mario started recording, and now I don't hear anything anymore. Okay, it's coming back. Great.
Yes, can you hear us?
Now I can hear you, yeah.
I think everybody should come closer to the laptop and then you can hear everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Now it's good. I'm seeing a huge size projector or something. I see a hot water kettle. Some people, yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, now you see like 5 people. Is that what we are today?
There is more. We are 8.
Yeah, 8. Okay, great. Anyway, so I think it's good enough, no? Like this. Hello, who's coming from here? Okay, wonderful. Good.
Okay. So all is good for us.
Right?
Yes, we can start.
Okay, good. Let's do that then.
Great.
Right. So I guess this projector down here is kind of projecting the camera somewhere on the screen here on the side. Is that what's going on?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Can you see?
Oh yeah, now I can see. Hi, Tharchin. Hi. Okay. Good. Cool. Yeah. So then let's start by doing a little bit of calming down and setting a motivation. Yeah. So just take a comfortable sitting position. If you can sit cross-legged, fine. If not, whatever is comfortable for you. Just try to be a little bit sitting stable. And then just maybe for a moment, just maybe if you like, you can close your eyes and bring your mind to this place here, to the room, and try to keep it there. So you can think, for example, that you are now actually in a very special group here. Probably this is the only group in Cluj that is trying to find out something about the mind and about who we are and how we function and so forth for today. So you're in a very special group. It's kind of for these 1.5 hours that we're going to have together. It's the best place to be. So you can just allow yourself for the time being to be in this place. You don't have to think about the past and recapitulate the past. You don't have to plan the future. So for this 1.5 hours, we make the decision to just keep the mind here in this place. It's a good place, a good group. We make the conscious decision to be here in this place for this 1.5 hours. And then we try to set a motivation. In other words, we try to become aware why we want to do this interaction for 1.5 hours here, because this will influence our experience. So first, we can ask ourselves, why did I come here tonight or this evening? Nobody forced me to come here. I'm here completely out of my own wish. I opted for that. I could do many other things, but I opted for that. So what motivated me to come here? Let's check our motivation. Why are we here? And then whatever motivation we found, maybe we can expand it a little bit, make it a bit more vast. So like something in the area of, I would like to understand more about my emotions, more about my experiences, more about my life and my death, more about my greater context, maybe even like going into like the universe or in time and so forth, what kind of potentials I have, in order to be able to live a more full life, in order to find my potentials and to also manifest my potentials, and to do this in order to improve my life and the interactions that I have with others, so also as much as I can to help others. So for that reason, I'm here tonight, and I want to get the maximum out of this evening by listening, concentrated, interacting, asking questions, and so forth. Thank you. Then we can start. So we want to talk about the mind and its potential. And last time already we were talking about 2-3 aspects. We saw that the mind is not material, that it is intensely connected to the body, maybe to the brain and so forth. But it itself is not material. It is defined as being kind of experience. It's defined as being clear and knowing. So in other words, it has appearances and then interacts with these appearances in a mental way, experiencing them, maybe judging them, maybe liking them or disliking them, and so forth. Getting an imprint in the mind such that you can have a memory of it later on, and so forth. Maybe having a misperception, maybe having a correct perception, and so forth. So all of this is this part of knowing, in clear knowing. So knowing does not mean that it's correct. It doesn't mean that it is reliable. This doesn't mean that it is perfect or something. It simply means there is a mental interaction, some kind of experience, some kind of knowing. And the clear is talking about that the mind is actually having an appearance of the world, of the things, for example, the material things. So that's all what it is. Yeah? It's just such an immaterial thing. It doesn't have a shape. It doesn't have a color. Doesn't have a weight or something like that. So, for example, different from the brain, which has a shape, which has a color, which has a weight. So it's not that. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't have a shape, and so forth. Then also we saw that Buddhism is actually all about the mind. Yeah, so the mind is in the very center of Buddhist teaching, of the Buddha's teaching, therefore. And this is because the mind is also the place where all kind of happiness and all kind of unhappiness is taking place. It's the very location of happiness and pain, or of suffering, of problems. And we heard also this very essential point that within the mind, within everybody's mind, there is this wish to be happy and not to suffer. And we looked also a little bit on this aspect that this wish to be happy is not just for some kind of short-lived, little bit something of happiness, but we're really looking for a fulfilling and lasting happiness. And this manifests, for example, when we're looking for a relationship that will be lasting all our life and so forth. We're looking for things that last. Relationship maybe not the best, is maybe not the place to look for that, but in the end, there is this wish in us to have a lasting, long-term, actually eternal form of happiness. And with regard to the suffering and problems, there's not a single suffering, a single problem that we are looking for. We want to be free of all these problems, all this what's called suffering or dissatisfaction. And even something like being bored, which is also an unpleasant experience. We don't want to be bored. We don't want to have any of these kind of experiences, not even for an instance. So that's kind of this very, very basic attitude in the mind that we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. That happiness and that suffering is happening within the mind. So because it is happening in the mind, it already shows that therefore the best way to bring about such a happiness and such a, getting rid of suffering is by working with the mind. Understand why the mind is experiencing certain things as happiness, what brings about happiness, what brings only short-term happiness, which is not what we're looking for, as I said. We look for long-term happiness. How do problems actually arise in our mind? Why do we experience that? Why are we getting angry? Why do we have miscommunication and so forth? Up to the point, why do we die? Why do we have to die? Why do we age and so forth? So all of this is actually happening in the mind. We want to be happy, we want to be free of suffering. All of this is happening in the mind. So everything becomes very central, is about the mind. For example, Buddhism is not so much about kind of what kind of economy we should have or what kind of government, political system we should have, if it's democracy or monarchy. That's not a topic for Buddhism so much. It is really about the mind and how the mind functions and so forth. And the Buddha is also teaching because of our wish to be happy and not want any kind of suffering. So the Buddha perceives that we have this very strong wish for happiness and for freedom of suffering, and he perceives also that actually the happiness that we do experience is very limited, and is not actually that what we're looking for. And we are experiencing a lot of problems, although we don't want problems. So something is going wrong here. We are not able to achieve that what we're looking for. And the Buddha is teaching for that. He says actually this wish for lasting, even everlasting happiness is realistic. This is possible. We can reach such a state. We can reach a state of lasting happiness. The way of attaining that might be very, very different from what we think. That's probably why we never attained it, because we never thought in that direction where this actual happiness we're looking for is to be attained. And he also says it's realistic to aim for a freedom in the mind that is free of all problems, all sufferings, and so forth. So there's a lot of reasoning in Buddhism behind this, why this is possible. And all this comes always back to the mind. So the Buddha is constantly teaching about the mind. And so that's exactly our topic here. And actually, to some extent, this is going to be the topic of the whole series of discovering Buddhism. Yeah, all of it has certain aspects of what is called a path, which means a way, a method for achieving this state that we're looking for, which is the liberation from all our problems and the attainment of a lasting happiness. So therefore, we can add to what we said before, that one of the aspects of the mind is that it can actually be purified of all problems, of all the causes of problems, and we can actually, in its purification, in its liberation, can actually experience lasting happiness, which is what we're looking for. So I asked you from last time to discuss this a little bit in the discussion group, if you think that this is the case, that we're actually looking for lasting happiness and for getting rid of our suffering, like or problems all the time. So I hope you looked at this a little bit. There was no questions coming from that, so either you agree all of this or you didn't discuss it. This is the two possibilities. Anyway, so whatever. I also said that therefore in the end the Buddha is really mainly interested in the mind, and so from that point of view you could even say that Buddhism is actually more a psychology than a religion. Just to be a little bit provocative. So therefore, that's the reason why we start with this very topic of mind and its potential, because it is the central phenomenon in Buddhism, and it is the central phenomenon in Buddhism because it's the central phenomenon in our life. Even if you might not be aware of that, you might think that maybe our job is the central phenomenon, or our relationships or something. But actually, in the end, if you're successful in your job, if your relationship is going well and so forth, if your communications are going well and so forth, it's all dependent on how your mind is expressing itself and what kind of state your mind is. The Buddha said the mind is kind of preceding everything, every action, every verbal action, communication, every physical action, like if you, what you try to achieve and so on, anything really is having first a motivation, has an intention, depends on if you are in the process getting frustrated, if you have control of your frustration, how you deal with frustration, if you're able to dissolve it, or rather you get angry, then already you're in a very unhappy state and so forth. Yeah, so it's all actually, in all our life, it's actually about what state of mind we have in these different situations, in our actions, in our communications and so forth. So it's all coming back to this. The mind is actually the key phenomenon in our life, and mainly it is our mind that is our key phenomenon. It's not so much that we have to change other people's behavior, which is maybe to some extent even very much out of our hands, but we have to work with our behavior, with our mind, with our intentions, our motivations, and so forth. Yeah, so like one thing that would really be therefore essential in Buddhism is to become more and more aware what is actually going on in the mind, to see our patterns in the mind, see our motivations, see our reactions to things, how we deal with things, what kind of thoughts come up, to be able to identify the problems in our mind, like anger, jealousy, frustration, desire, overexcitement, being distracted and not being able to concentrate, being despising others, being having a burnout, let's say, or being how you call this, like being desperate and so forth. And so to identify that, to be actually able to say, this is what's going on right now. I understand what's going on in my mind. I look, when I turn inside, I can always understand what state I'm in. And then I can also understand how this state came about, what's the causes for that. And this will enable you in the long term to actually stop the process, to see the process happening when it's just starting, and you can stop things right there. And so right now we're a little bit kind of under the control of all our patterns, because we are not aware of them. We cannot clearly describe them. We do not see how they function. We don't understand the causes and so forth. But all of this can change. We can become aware. We can understand the processes. We can even end this process. We can understand where this is all coming from, the very cause or the root cause, and end that cause. So what that means is that while the mind is the place in which happiness is happening, and is also where the sufferings is happening, these things like the sufferings in our mind do not have always to be there, but they can be understood, they can be reduced, they can be eliminated. So that's a very important thing about the mind, to understand that the mind can change, and can change dramatically. And good qualities that we have right now, we can first of all become aware of them, and we can strengthen them, and they can become very strong, and they can be actually Buddha qualities in the end. Like, for example, we all have a certain form of compassion, a certain type of love, of empathy, and so forth. And this can be strengthened, can be recognized, first of all. We become very clear what in our mind is compassion. How does it feel almost, that you can see it. And then we can strengthen it and so forth. So what I want to say with this is that the mind, is kind of in its nature pure. It's a very pure phenomenon. So all the darkness in our mind, or all the problems in our mind, are not in the nature of the mind. If they would be in the nature of the mind, we could not possibly remove them. Because if it's in the nature of the mind and you remove it, you would have to remove the mind as well. That's impossible. So that's a very central thing in Buddhism, to say that there is mental states which are appearing for us a lot, like, for example, all the suffering, all the blockages, all the problems. But these are not in the nature of the mind. These can completely be dissolved. They can be eliminated. So that's what's meant when we say sometimes that the nature of the mind is that it's pure. Yeah? That the mind is naturally pure. And this is explained by way of many analogies. So one analogy is, for example, the sky. Yeah, so we look in a clear summer sky, completely limitless, amazing, clear, and so forth. And then all kind of clouds are collecting in that sky. Yeah, so there is the vast sky. Let's say there's a blue sky, and then there's white clouds coming. And then there's more clouds coming, and the clouds get gray, and it's getting overcast, and there's no blue sky to be seen anymore. And then it gets even stronger, and there's a whole thunderstorm coming, and there's lightning, and there's rain, maybe there's hail, and so on. All of this is happening, but at any one moment, the sky itself is clear. It is covered for the time being by clouds, but the sky itself is clear. And sure enough, the thunderstorm will be over, the clouds are dispersing again, and there's just a clear sky. Because the clouds are not in the nature of the sky. They can come, and then they go. And so similar it is with the problems that we have in our mind, the limitations that we have in our mind. They are all kind of what is called adventitious. They're appearing in certain circumstances. They are there due to certain causes and conditions, but they can be eliminated completely. Yeah? So such that the natural clarity of the mind becomes apparent. And so actually, this is very easy to understand if you think about anger, for example. So I don't know about you guys, but me right now, I'm not angry with anyone, not with you, not with anyone else, but I have been angry before. So there was, let's say, a dark cloud of anger, and now it has dissolved. So right now, that kind of darkness is not present. The thing is that it can come again if the causes and conditions are coming together. If I'm not careful with my mind, if I don't observe my mind, if I don't observe a process starting that could lead to anger and stop it right there. So if I don't do that, then this can come again, and there can be again this dark cloud, let's say, in the sky of my mind. But again, it will dissolve again. So it is not in the nature of the mind. If it would be in the nature of my mind to be angry, I would have to be always angry. So I said the definition of the mind is that it's clear knowing, and it is always clear knowing, but it is not always angry. It is also not always desirous. It is also not always jealous and so forth. So all these things are adventitious. They come and go. They are not in the nature of the mind. And what the Buddha is saying is, this adventitious, what is called adventitious stains, the stains of our mind, are actually even so adventitious that they can be removed completely. So right now we have these kind of clouds appearing in our mind, like covering the sky of our mind with the different, what we call the afflictions, or the like anger and attachment and jealousy and so forth. And then they dissolve again, and then later on they might come back. But what the Buddha is talking about, that it is possible to dissolve these clouds so that they will never come back. They will never form again in the sky of the mind. So that's kind of this analogy for the purity of the mind. So all the problems that we have right now are adventitious. They can be removed, and they can be removed because they're not in the nature of the mind. The mind can be actually purified. Another example for this, very similar, is that we talk about water, like a body of clear water, somewhere maybe say a lake or something. And at the bottom of this lake, there is all kind of, let's say, mud or particles and so forth. So if you take a stick and you stir in this body of water, then all the mud will come up and everything will become completely muddy. You cannot look through it again and so forth. So it's kind of still water, but it's kind of murky water, or it is muddy water. It is unclear, it is maybe disgusting, and I don't know what. But if you stop stirring, after some time, all the particles will sink to the ground, and what you're left with is just clear water. So how is this possible? This is because the dirt and the mud is not in the nature of water. It is there adventitiously. It is staining the water. It makes the water dirty or undrinkable for the time being. But then the whole situation calms down, and we just have the clarity of the water again. So all of this is analogies for what is going on in our mind. The mind is simply clear and knowing. It has the potential to be completely liberated and free. It has the potential to be free of all problems as we wish, to have a lasting happiness as we're wishing for. But for the time being, we have all this dirt in our mind. We have all these dark clouds in our mind and so forth. And so that's actually what Buddhism tries to do. Yeah? It tries to kind of calm the mind so that the dirt in the water settles down. Even so far that the dirt is eliminated, yeah? As if there would be then only the water without the mud on the bottom of the lake. Or that the sky, which is anyway going into limitless space, that is limitless potential of the mind, that this simply stays clear and limitless without any clouds ever forming again. So maybe I can bring here one of the questions that you had out of your discussion group. It was here, what about the mind in the case of kids? Small kids have a mind and they are not aware of this yet. I'm not sure what that means. It says, is this pure state of mind the purpose for all of us? Yeah, so this is a question about a pure state. Yeah, so the purity of mind. And so what I'm saying is that whatever kind of impurity or limitation we have in the mind is adventitious, can be removed by different psychological or spiritual techniques. That's what Buddhism is all about. Is like actually Buddhism is about this. The Buddha is first pointing out that we are having problems in the mind, and then he's telling us methods for removing those. Yeah? And again, he can only do that because actually we are able to be healed. We can be purified, and the actual state is stainless and is pure. So there is this kind of state of purity, that the nature of the mind is clear and is pure and so forth, in that sense, as I have explained. And this purity can be also manifested by getting rid of all these problems in the mind through spiritual practice, which is also very often likened to somebody who is sick. And then the Buddha is actually telling us the diagnosis of the sickness. It's saying, so this and this is going wrong in your mind, or this is why you have this kind of problems. And then he also gives us a medicine, which is the different techniques and different spiritual practices to remove that, or to heal ourselves, actually, or to purify ourselves, if you like. And then that's all what he can do. After that, it's up to us to actually take the medicine, to actually purify our mind, to actually get rid of all these stains and so forth, to actually heal what you could call a spiritual sickness, to actually get rid of the suffering and to attain a lasting happiness. So that's the purity that Buddhism is actually talking about. When we talk about children, on the other hand, so here we might have maybe some types of psychology in the West. They have this idea that you are born as if you would be a white sheet of paper, kind of completely pure, maybe helpless, I don't know, maybe innocent. Maybe we all have this idea that children are innocent and so forth, or kind of pure. And so then they say, on this white paper, then your education, like your parents, first of all, and then the education in school and so forth, and society, are kind of printing on this, and then this previously pure piece of paper is full of imprints, and this shapes your character, kind of thing. So Buddhism would not agree with this at all. Yeah, so we are born within samsara. We came out of a previous birth, which was in samsara. It's not that kind of this child is kind of a pure child in its nature, because it's just the rebirth of a very old person that just died out of an old life. Yeah, so it's just a continuation of that, what we perceive as not so innocent, maybe somebody who has lived his whole life. And now it looks like it's innocent again because it's this small child. But actually we have this continuity of minds over many, many lives. And we have all kind of, how do you say, luggage that we bring from these other lives. So this very child here has all this luggage from this previous lives, has all these so-called imprints on the mind from all the acts that have been done in the past. Might be good acts, might be negative acts. And so different imprints from the past ripening in this life, like we have much more imprints from the past lives than have ripened in this life. Yeah? So there's a lot of imprints left from past lives. But certain of them have ripened in the process of taking rebirth. And this also forms our character. And the child already has a character. So I would really like to invite you to check this out. If you have somebody in the family who has children, or if you know friends that have small children and so forth, check this out, how children are behaving. Yeah, personally, I have a sister who has 2 children, and so the older one of them is 10 years now, the other one's maybe 7, I think 7. So in the last years, I could see these children grow up, and because I have gotten, due to the kindness of my teachers and of the monastery here, some Buddhist background, I could watch them grow up with this Buddhist outlook, with this Buddhist ways of observing. And there's definitely something like that children can be mean to each other. There's definitely something like that very young children probably be mean to the parents, can be mean to other people, that very young children, very, very young children, like 1 year, 2-year-old children already want to have something. If they don't get it, they get angry and so forth. So it's actually all very, very understandable because it's exactly how we are. So it's really a question like how much, where's this innocence and where's this purity that we always perceive, that we all perceive? I don't know actually. So maybe there is maybe something about children that they're forgiving very quickly. That there might be something there. That they are very open to meet people, or maybe they might be open to have new experiences. So all kind of beautiful things that maybe later on we lose a little bit. We get maybe have all kind of negative experiences, and then we close up more. Maybe we are getting more defensive, or we're not so open to people anymore. So maybe there's something why we perceive young children as being innocent or being very pure. So from a Buddhist point of view, this is not the case. They're carrying all the baggage of all these old people who died in the past. They're all this fully lived lives in the past. Have all these character traits with them, all these so-called karmic imprints with them, and so forth. And they already are born with a character. Yeah? So already a very young child can be either peaceful or more, let's say, expressive, or even up to the point of aggressive. You know, one of the examples that is often used is that you might have young children who are into kind of, I say, teasing insects or even killing insects, and the others are not like that. And not all of this can be explained by way of education. You might have the same parents and 2 children growing up in the same family, and one of them is a little more cruel, and the other one is more, say, respectful to life. Just as an example, yeah, you could find many other examples of that. So I'm saying this because we had this question here: what about the mind in the case of kids? It says small kids have a mind and they are not aware of this yet. Is this pure state of mind the purpose for all of us? So indeed, we are looking for a purity in the mind, because in this purity there will be an absence of problems, and there is a fulfilling type of happiness, a lasting type of happiness. But the purity is not well represented by the state of the children, that by the kids. Yeah? So they're maybe less pure than we all would hope for. I think there's also something in us that likes to project wishes onto others. Yeah, so this is happening in relationships, for example, where we are projecting good qualities maybe on the partner that the partner doesn't have, or not to this extent. Somehow we want this, that the other person has these qualities. And maybe something similar here with the children. I could, for example, see how for my parents, it was really, really essential that obviously I don't have children, but that my sister got children so that they had grandchildren. So I found this very interesting, you know. They are living their lives, and they're getting to the ends of their lives. But now there's hope. There's this youth. There's this newborn children. Yeah? There's this new life coming. So what's it to them that there's a new life? Why don't they work with their own life? Instead, they project this on other people. Anyway, it's just side ideas to be checked. So I would like to invite you to check this with children. Yeah? If you have interaction with children, just without judging them, without kind of rejecting them or anything like that. Just observe the humanness of these children. Observe the beautiful things for what they are, and admit also that maybe there are some things which are a little bit astonishing or a little bit you don't want them to do that. Like you want them to be pure and innocent, and maybe it's less innocent than we thought. So I don't know if this answers the question. I hope this goes a little bit in this direction. I don't even know if the person who asked this question is here.
Yes, it's here.
Is here? Cool. And does it answer the question somewhat?
In some part, yes. But I was asking more about I don't know how to translate it.
So, what was he talking about is about kids being not influenced by others when they take a decision. Yes. So they act out of spontaneous behavior, and without being conscious of themselves, they purely act. They just act. This is what I understood.
Yeah, I know about that. So I think that children, you might find that children are constantly observing, for example, other children, how they act and how they actually I think that children are already wondering how to act in a certain situation, and they look at other children what they do. And if you imagine how children are born and they don't speak any language, so they cannot be taught how to speak a language because they don't speak a language themselves. So they are solely learning a language by observing or kind of by listening to what the grown-ups, what the adults are doing. Yeah, so they definitely have a very strong tendency to actually check out what other people are doing and mimicking that. And I think they are very much influenced also by their parents in the beginning. So I think they are influenced in the decision by what's going on around them. They're constantly picking up modes of behavior and so forth. I mean, the thing is that also these children, they're exactly like us in that they have a mind and they want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. And they're looking for methods to achieve that. So they look around how everybody else does that. And then they mimic that. They do the same thing. Whatever speaks to them anyway. But at the same time, as I said, I also have the feeling that children might be more open to meet people, to not bearing a grudge or kind of keeping things in mind so long, but kind of changing quickly. They might fall down and hurt themselves, and they scream and whatever, and then really virtually half a minute later they are already talking with somebody. You felt like this must have hurt so much. This is kind of a real big thing, and half a minute later it's just over. Even pain is just over. So that's definitely a good quality to be able to let things pass by. And you might also find different levels of spontaneity with different children. So also that's different actually. But in as far as we observe good qualities with others in general, and with children specifically here in this question, then it's good to look at that and to ask oneself. So I think this is a good quality. Maybe also because why is that a good quality? So to find reasons why this is a beautiful aspect of this human being, and then try to emulate that, to go along with that. So spontaneity, for example, seems to be actually quite a good thing, to step out of one's habits and try to be spontaneous with the situation. Because it might be that sometimes we would like to react in a certain way, we grown-ups, but we think like, but that's not what I'm normally doing, and then we are stopping ourselves from doing a certain thing, maybe a certain positive thing, because that's not kind of who we are or how we do things. And Buddhism would very much say, well, actually, you're much less fixed than you think. Yeah, so if in this case you want to do like that, then just do like that. Yeah, you don't have to be to live up to this and this kind of expectation or something. Yeah, so spontaneity. If you see this with children, well, try to emulate it. Try to understand how would this look like if you yourself do that with other people, and try to understand what is stopping you from this right now. Yeah, become aware of these different aspects in one's own mind. Right?
Thank you.
Welcome. I want to say another thing, because we are almost, I don't know, we have 7 minutes only because we want to do a question answer, no? Anyway, maybe I just start this topic. One thing that is very important about the nature of the mind is that it is beginningless. And I would hold that this is quite a shock as a concept. If you really go into it, it's quite a shock as a concept for Westerners, maybe for Westerners in general, but maybe in general is maybe a difficult concept. So the idea is this: as mind is not matter, but is of a very different quality, is something immaterial, is simply that what is clear knowing and so forth. Therefore, it's a kind of very different phenomenon from the material world. So when we look at our body, for example, we can clearly say that this body is coming from other material causes. So first of all, at birth, it is coming from the egg and sperm of our father and mother. Yeah, and then later on it comes from all kind of food that we're eating and so forth. So that's very clear that if we are connected with regard to our body, this is connected to our father and mother on the material side. So we could say that our body is coming from the bodies of our father and mother. But with our mind, it's not like that. Our mind is not coming from this egg and sperm, because egg and sperm is something material and cannot be the cause for something immaterial. It is also not coming from the minds of our father and mother. So also our father and mother have their respective mind stream, their mental events, their experiences, their feelings and so forth. They also have these phenomena which are immaterial and which are simply clear and knowing. But our mind does not come from those minds. If that would be the case, we would come from those minds. We would have to have exactly this character. We would have to be like that. But maybe even our father and mother are of different character. So already this is not possible. So the point is this, that there's an immaterial thing of the mind, which is the mind, has to have as a cause something that is similar to it. So something else that is immaterial. For example, the present moment of mind has as its cause the previous moment of mind. And that one has as a cause the yet previous moment. And the present moment of mind will be the cause for the next moment of mind. Yeah? The mind is not just standing there kind of being a permanent phenomenon, but it's changing all the time in this cause. And one of the causes that any product, anything that is caused has to have is something of a similar type. So the mind, being clear knowing and so forth, has to have as its cause something else that is clear knowing, another mind. And then this one has another mind as its cause. So we can go back through a whole week or like last time we met, yeah? So ever since we met last time, 2 weeks ago, your mind has constantly gone from moment to moment, yeah? So there is a mind that was there, during the last session, which is in long term, the cause of the present mind. And then you can go back further there, yeah? like go a year ago, but there was a mind in that moment, which caused future moments of mind. And then before that, there was a mind, and before that was a mind. And so if you go back like this, then there was already a mind when you were a young person, when you were a child. And from that on, there was a cause and effect chain that led to the present moment of mind. And the present moment of mind will lead to future events of a cause and effect, which are mind. So there was this mind, which is your causation, your cause and effect chain, with regard to the mental phenomena, when you were a child. And then also the mind of that child had causes. And it goes back to the moment when this child was born. But not only that, but even that the mind at the moment of birth had to have a previous moment of the same type of mind, a cause which is mind. So there was then the unborn child mind in the womb. And then even there you can go back, even to the moment of conception, where the egg and sperm kind of connect, and then consciousness is there at that moment already. But even that mind had a cause. So if you take the first moment of your physical existence, where there was this fertilized egg, there was consciousness already, but even that consciousness is not different from any other moment of consciousness. It also has a cause, and that cause has to be again of its type. So it has also a mind as its cause. But as we are talking here right now about the first moment of your body, the fertilized egg, then obviously the cause for that mind is the moment before, where there was no fertilized egg. So there was a mind in your stream of cause and effect, which led to the present moment of mind, that was not connected to this present, let's say, stream, cause and effect stream of the body. It was not connected to the substances of your father and mother. It was not connected to your father and mother. It was not of this life. It was from a previous state. So, this definitely is going to be a module on rebirth. I'm sure about this. I don't have the list of modules here, but I'm sure this is going to come at one point. So we can go in more detail about this later. But in a very gross way, we can say, so the previous moment is of mind is this the moment of mind that caused the first moment of mind of this life was not of this life, it was of a past life. And then in this past life, let's say this was a moment, the moment of death of a very old person. Then this old person has this mind, this last moment of that person's mind, and that person was also once a boy or a girl, a young person. So also there was mind. And then also that child was born at one point, and then there was a mind in the womb, and then there was a mind in that fertilized egg, and then there was a mind before that, and so forth. I mean, you get the gist, right? So there's just no end to this. And that means there is no end to previous moments of mind. There's no end to previous lives. And when I say no end, I literally mean that. There is no first moment. There's no first moment of mind. There's no first moment of life. Yeah, so normally when we think in more cosmic terms, then we go back through, I don't know, millions or billions of years, and at one point we come to the Big Bang, and that's the first moment. And not even that. There is no first moment. If you would go back to the time of the Big Bang, and there would be a moment of mind, this moment of mind would be caused by a previous moment of mind before the Big Bang. So what I'm touching here on is that in Buddhism, like actually in probably quite some Indian religions, you have extremely vast dimensions for many things. For example, not only does the mind not have a beginning, actually also matter has no beginning. Matter is also without a first moment, because it's exactly the same process. Matter is also a caused phenomenon. So the present state of matter is caused by the previous state of matter. And that is caused by two moments back matter, and so forth, up to the Big Bang. And according to Buddhism, the Big Bang itself is also caused. And I don't think this is kind of contradicting science. It's just that science would say, like, when we reach to the moment of Big Bang, our calculations are no longer working. Mathematics dissolves, normal physics ends there, and so we can't say what was before. So Buddhism philosophically simply says there is a causation for that as well. There is matter before the Big Bang. Obviously, this matter will look very different than like a stone or like a tree or something like this. But anyway, so we say there is moments before that as well. And so what this leads to is, to some extent, that there is a moment before the Big Bang for matter, and therefore, as the Big Bang is the start of this universe, this moment belongs to a previous universe. And so also with regard to matter and the universe, Buddhism is having this limitless idea that there was a universe before this universe. And that universe was also coming out of, let's say, a Big Bang or something like that. It had a starting point, but there was a moment before that as well. There was a universe before the previous universe, and the universe before that, and so forth. And there was always this interaction between mind and universe, mind and matter, through all these ungraspable, unfathomable amounts of time. So also for the universes, there's actually no beginning. I think this is touching a little bit like on Buddhist cosmology. I'm not sure if there's a module on that, so maybe we can talk a little bit about this here. So that this idea we have. Yeah? So there's this stream of matter unfolding into universes. So the idea is actually that there would be an unfolding of the universe, an abiding of the universe, and then it would kind of, disintegrate. The universe disintegrates into kind of a very basic state, and then out of this very basic state, let's say a state zero, the next universe would come again, abide, disintegrate, and then a new universe comes, and so forth. Yeah. So in this way, matter is going through these endless cycles of unfolding and collapsing again, and so forth. And so that's an infinite or infinite in time phenomenon, a phenomenon that does not have a beginning. And so is our mind stream. Yeah? Our mind stream also has always a previous moment, and that also does not have a beginning. You could say maybe like you could talk about small universes of mind, if you like this life's mind has been unfolding from the state of being this fertilized egg into the present state, will degenerate, and at one point will go back to ground zero, and then there will be the next life, let's say the next universe of mind. So in this way, you go through all these kind of cycles with the mind as well, and there's always a previous moment and so forth. And so in the end, our mind stream has no beginning. So now we have already two things which don't have a beginning. The universe does not have a beginning. Your mind stream does not have a beginning. But everybody in this room has his own mind stream. And each of these mind streams do not have a beginning. So there's actually a lot of phenomena which have no beginning. Yeah. So from this again follows a lot of things, you know, a lot of things. Like for example, that if we have had no beginning, then also the amount of lives that we have taken is unexpressible. And in all these lives, we have accumulated imprints for all kind of habits, all kind of character traits, all kind of rebirth and so forth. And only some of them are ripening in every one life. So there's a lot left from, like, we could almost say, in this present moment, we carry, if you like, the load of unbelievable amounts of rebirth in the past. And we have almost the karma or the imprints for almost any kind of experience. So if you take a rebirth like as a human being, only certain types of experiences are possible. But if you die out of this life, you will no longer be a human being because you have no longer a human body. The mind will kind of again go back to this level zero, if you like, and then due to the karma that is activated, the mind unfolds into another life which might have completely different experiences in them. For example, you might be interested in spirituality in this life, but there's no guarantee that you're interested in spirituality in the next life. This depends on how strong the habit is with spirituality, how strong the imprint is for spirituality. So if you are making a lot of effort with that in this life, then you can leave a very strong imprint in your continuum, so that also in the next life, this kind of imprint manifests again. Anyway, this would open up like a huge discussion about karma and about our experiences due to our imprints and so on. So my main point is here right now actually just that the mind is without beginning. It is beginningless. And this is for in the Buddhist world is not something amazing to say, because there's a great many things which are beginningless. I think I have to stop myself here a bit, because it's already 6:37 and normally we wanted to do 1 hour of me talking and then we do question and answer. And I have not answered 2 of the questions that you sent me. Maybe I can continue with that. Is that okay? Can we stop here for now and I do these 2 questions?
Yes. Let's continue with the question.
Okay. So what do I have here? I have here, thus integrating all these aspects as part of the mind, so all these aspects of thoughts, emotions, memory, perception, and so on, bring some advantages compared to defining mind, emotions, memory, and so forth separately, like they are defined in other religions and philosophies and science. Yeah? So here the point is this. All these phenomena like memory or emotions and so forth, they are all subsumed under mind because they all are mind. They are all immaterial. They all have a continuity that is without beginning. They are all connected to our wish to be happy, to be happy and not to experience suffering. They're all clear and knowing. Yeah. For example, so that's quite interesting. Yeah? So what Buddhism is saying, that hatred, for example, is a mind. It's an emotion, but it is also a mind. And because it's a mind, it is clear and knowing. Hatred is clear and knowing. Yeah? If you are lazy or dizzy or even if you are unconscious, what we call unconscious, even that is states of mind, and therefore something that's clear and knowing. Because again, this definition of clear knowing does not mean that there is kind of clarity in the mind in the sense of that you're very sharp or very undisturbed. Yeah? Clarity just means that the mind has an appearance of its object. And then the knowing is talking about that there is a mental interaction with that, like including feelings and so forth. So even hatred is clear and knowing. It has an appearance of an object and interacts with that. How does it interact? By hating it. Or even when you are dizzy, you have a very unclear object, but you have an object, you have an appearance, and the way you are interacting with this is maybe by having a neutral feeling, or anyway by being blurry in the mind and so forth. So that's why all of this is subsumed under mind, because that is what it is. Apart from that, all these different phenomena like memory, like emotions, like afflictions, or we talk about virtues, virtuous mind, like faith, like compassion and so forth. All of these have their respective definition. So they're clearly separated out. There's a clear distinction between hatred and compassion, of course. Yeah? So they're all treated as mind because they are mind. They are clear and knowing. And I think I mentioned this last time that actually there might be a difficulty with the translation, because when we hear mind, then maybe we think more about like the cognitive side, like perception or intelligence or analysis or maybe memory or language or something, but not about maybe creativity or love or empathy. We would make this distinction. So therefore we have to be clear what is behind this word mind. It is this definition. Everything that is clear and knowing. And just that is mind. Maybe you remember that I told you that in Chinese Buddhism, they chose for the word heart. Remember that? Anyway, there is this different terms that are translated into the English language as mind, because we have to take a term, you know. So some people say we should maybe say the heart mind and so forth. So don't be misled by the Western usage or normal usage of the word mind. It is not talking about just perception. but it's talking about that phenomenon which is clear and knowing, which is immaterial and so forth. Whatever is that is therefore mind, because it fulfills this definition. So our emotions fulfill that, memory fulfills that, perception fulfills that, and so forth. Another thing that is also interesting is that when they talk about mind, they are making actually, or let's say when they talk about consciousness, or a knower, as sometimes is said, then they make a distinction between a main mind and mental factors, where a main mind is something that is kind of perceiving the object in general, and then you have mental factors, which could be like different departments connected to this main mind that have special functions. For example, one mental factor is called feeling, which is talking about that you are having a pleasant experience or an unpleasant experience. Another factor is called, for example, mindfulness. So this could be to say there's memory or recollection also. So this is simply a part of that part of the mind that is keeping the object, is staying on the object. So that's something very different. The function to stay on the object is very different from having a pleasant experience. So these different aspects of the mind are separated out in this presentation of main mind and mental factors. And so there, all of this is clearly kind of distinguished. So why all of this in the end is called mind or consciousness and so forth, again, is because they all share the aspect of not being material, of being clear and knowing, and so forth. So that's all what this wants to say. And apart from that, there's many subdivisions of mind, like in all the other religions. Actually, just to throw this in, is maybe a personal thing, but sometimes I wonder. Everybody that I know will scream when I say that, but sometimes I wonder if it would not be a better translation to say soul. So normally people don't like to use soul in Buddhism because it is a very strongly religious term, like used in other religions and so forth, and because one of the core aspects of Buddhism is that there is no self, and some people even say like there is no soul. But, you could play with that. You could say there is a soul that is not inherently existent, not findable, not truly existent, and so forth. So, anyway, so I'm just saying that soul might actually be a term that in our Western culture is covering all of these things, like emotions, perception, recollection, memory, and so forth. So I wonder sometimes if that would not be a better term. Just to give you something to play with. In the end, we will stay with the word mind because it's also already used all over the West and the books and the teachings and so forth. So, so that's what I have to share on this topic of integrating all these different aspects into the mind. Does that make any sense? Is the one who asked this question present?
No, but it makes sense. And I wrote it down.
What is that? Could you say this again?
The person is not here, but we wrote down the answer, and it makes sense.
Okay, cool. Cool, then I can take the third one here. It is saying here, is mind always riding some form of physical energy? Okay. So, I guess this was coming out of the discussion, what's the interaction between mind and the body? I could imagine. Hello, who's here? Has a cat here. Wonderful. Also has also mind, can also purify the mind. So anyway, so so here I have to introduce the concept of sutra and tantra. We have a certain body of teachings which we call a sutra, and here they don't talk really about this kind of subtle energies on which the mind is riding, or that the mind is connected to this subtle physical energies. So this idea of subtle physical energies is actually coming out of the tantric teaching. So the tantric teaching is a kind of a certain corpus of texts which have very specific practices in them. So you might have somebody who's doing Buddhism and does not accept these kind of teachings. You might have somebody who does so-called Mahayana or Great Vehicle Buddhism, and does not accept these teachings. So in the Tibetan tradition, these teachings are very much there. They're very much integrated in the normal way of teaching and presenting things. So still, the main studies that are done are actually about sutra. And in sutra, they don't speak about these subtle energies and this connection of the mind with the energies so much. This is a teaching in Tantra. And the geshes, let's say the doctorates or professors of coming out of the Tibetan or the Gelugpa education system in the great monasteries, they actually study for 20 plus years, and what they study is only sutra. They never study Tantra. This is later on, when they have qualified as a geshe, they might go to a Tantric college and then get these additional teachings. It's just that in the West there was such great interest in Tantra, a lot to be said about that also, that this has spread a lot to the West. Yeah? Maybe also psychology was more interested in these things. Maybe Jung was, the psychologist Jung was into these things and so forth. So, so just to say that the main emphasis in studies, also here in Nalanda, our studies, is definitely on sutra. And again, sutra would not talk about this connection between the mind and subtle energies. So Tantra does, and in Tantra, indeed, they would say that there is at the time of death, for example, when all the mind is retreating to the subtlest level, yeah, the coarse levels of mind are all dissolving. It goes to subtler and subtler levels, and finally, the most subtle level is called the clear light mind of death. And so this clear light mind is connected with a very subtle, wind is called a wind energy, very, very subtle physical. But the wind energy is something physical. And so it is said that then later on, the subtlest mind takes rebirth and unfolds again into this new rebirth, connecting with the new body and so forth, and it gets coarser again, coarser levels of mind, then also this energy gets coarser. And they talk about something like a so-called Vajra body inside of us, all kind of channels and chakras and I don't know what, all these things. And within there is this flow of these energies. So indeed, in Tantra, they say that there is, like normally in Sutra, they would say when you die, the mind goes to a very subtle level and then continues into another life. The body and everything physical about you is left behind and is decomposing and becomes a tree or becomes earth or what I know what. But what goes on is the mind. So in Tantra, they say that there is actually a physical aspect to us that is connected to the mind. And when you die, also these energies dissolve into the subtlest one. And there is this physical aspect going with you into the next life. So I'm saying this only because this question came up. Actually, I neither feel qualified nor I don't feel qualified to talk about Tantra much. It's really kind of a higher level type of teaching. Nor do I think that it is really kind of so appropriate in a beginner course. Even to some kind of advanced course, it wouldn't necessarily be so appropriate. So I'm just mentioning that there is this kind of teachings. But in the normal studies that we, for example, also do here in Nalanda, there is not, we don't study about this so much. Like we're doing study programs here that are given by the FPMT. We're doing here a basic program, so-called basic program, master program. And there is also modules, like here, and this is covering Buddhism program. So we have modules, different texts, and so on. And there is tantric modules there. This is coming from Lama Zopa Rinpoche's advice. But in the Gate monasteries, they would not do this kind of tantric modules. Yeah. So they would just study sutra. And so we're doing the master program here since 5 years, and since 5 years we are solely studying sutra texts. Solely. Yeah. So I don't know if I get my point across. My point is that yes, actually mind is connected according to Tantra with a subtle physical level, which is our physical level, which does not come from father and mother, does not come from the fertilized egg, does not come from food and so forth. And having said that, I would like to leave it at that, maybe for the time being. Okay?
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's what I have to offer with regard to these 3 questions. We have a little bit time left, so if somebody has a question out of what we did today, if this raised any question, then I would be very happy to take that question.
Okay, so yeah, there is one question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can even see you very clearly now.
You said the mind is like the sky, so
Yeah.
it's clear by its nature, and you have the clouds coming and disturbing it.
Yeah.
How can you put the clouds away? Do they go naturally, or you do something about taking the clouds away?
Okay, cool. So first of all, of course, any analogy is just an analogy. It goes that far. So it has its limitations. But let's like when we say the sky is kind of the nature of the mind or the mind in general, this clear knowing phenomenon, and the clouds are like disturbing emotions or afflictions, like anger or jealousy or intolerance or hatred and so on. So there's two things to be said. The one thing is that these kind of clouds are themselves a conditioned phenomenon. They come about due to causes and conditions. And that means they are impermanent. They came up due to a certain condition, and they also dissolve to the certain this is in their nature to dissolve again. Nobody, however strong he gets angry, will stay on this level for a long time. Probably not even for an hour, much less. So to some extent, all these clouds are transforming at least, or even dissolving by their own nature. But the thing is, if we don't work with them, they will come back. As I said, there might have been the dark cloud of anger or of jealousy or whatever in my mind earlier today or this week or whenever, and right now it's not there. So it has dissolved simply by its nature. But as long as it was there, I was suffering from this state. I was disturbed by this state. My good qualities have been cut back. I was definitely not in accordance with my wish to be happy and not to suffer. Yeah, as long as it was there. But then it changed because the condition changed. And then another karma ripens. The outside condition changes. I have a different object that I'm dealing with. So maybe it was replaced by, I don't know, by joy about something else. And in that moment there was joy and there was not hate. Yeah? Or anger. So that has just dissolved because it's in its nature to dissolve. It cannot stay forever. But there is a potential to come back. So while naturally these things are dissolving, they also naturally, like in our present state, will come back. So what we want to do is that they dissolve forever, and they don't come back ever again. And so for that you have to work. This is really you have to kind of apply teachings, methods, practices, and so forth in order to really kind of dissolve them completely. And another thing is, like to dissolve them completely is actually quite difficult. In order to get into a state where these clouds have dissolved completely, like even the slightest trace of it, you would have to reach nirvana. Nirvana is a Sanskrit term which means blown out. So that the afflictions and so on have been blown out. They will never come back. It's like a candle that is kind of sometimes burning with a big flame and sometimes with a small flame. But this one is blown out. It will never again have a flame on it. Yeah, the afflictions are completely gone. But this is actually one of the final goals of Buddhism and might take many lifetimes to get there. So don't be discouraged. but it is important to have kind of two outlooks at the same time. So on the one hand, to have an understanding of the long-term goal, that actually complete liberation, complete freedom is possible. But this will take quite some transformation in the mind and quite some spiritual work. At the same time, with rather easy techniques like becoming aware, what's going on in your mind and being aware how that feels and becoming aware that you want to be happy and you don't want to suffer, then you might be able to cut afflictions or anger, for example, rather quickly. Yeah, so the cloud is about to form in your mind. You see it forming and you stop it right there and you force it to dissolve rather than it getting completely fully developed and then because it's impermanent at one point it will again dissolve. So you shorten the problem a lot. You lessen the problem a lot. And this can be attained rather quickly actually. But to attain a complete liberation where they will never ever again form in the sky of the mind, is a final goal, is one of the ultimate goals. And there's two, so the technical term for this is definite goodness, the definitely good state. So in Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, we talk about two of these. On the one hand, a nirvana, where your own mind is liberated from this. And then there's even a state beyond that, which is Buddhahood, which is much more connected to a universal responsibility, universal love and compassion, where you try to become a Buddha so you can help everybody else with their clouds. And as it is already difficult to work with your clouds, if you don't get the special qualities of a Buddha, you will be very limited in how much you can do for others. But a Buddha can do amazing things for others. So that's yet another ultimate goal. But both of these goals take a long practice and many lives and so forth, and high yogis attain these states and they're trying to get there. But at the same time, it is important to have also short-term goals, like to be aware that you can manage your anger, your frustration, your desire, your attachment, your, let's say, your behavior with regard to buying things or how you call this, consumerism or something like this. Yeah, you can change in many things right now, right here. And this has to do, of course, with that our problems have many different layers. There is a very coarse one that we might be even aware of right now. And then there's subtler ones which we're not so aware of. And then there's very subtle ones we have no clue of. So the coarse ones can luckily be eliminated by rather coarse techniques. So that's already said we can do rather quickly. Yeah? We can apply things there. So again, our problems dissolve by their very nature of being impermanent, but they will always come back. And if you don't do anything about it, they will go into the full-blown state and give pain to us or problems to us or afflict us for a long time. So we can learn to decrease this with rather coarse tools rather quickly, definitely within this lifetime. And then there is more ingrained or more deeper levels to the problem. So this will take more observation, more experience, more subtler techniques. And then there's a final level of actually getting liberated and to completely empty the sky of any clouds so that they will never come back. This is an ultimate goal. This is something like a long-term thing, which is including that you would have an outlook of practicing for many lifetimes. So therefore, this would be based on having already a conviction that there is many lifetimes that you have this time to work in that way. Is that an answer? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Any remarks on that? Anything else you need to know in that for now? No? Your question is completely answered?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Any other question? You don't have to have another question. It's 7 o'clock. Here in France, at least, it's 7 o'clock.
Well, all the negativities are also mind,
Yeah.
but they are adventitious.
Yeah, you could say if you like, you could say there are states of mind, like the mind kind of transforms for the time being into that, but that kind of manifestation of mind is adventitious. It can transform into something else, yeah, without stopping to be mind. Yeah, so while the afflictions or the negative states are mind, if you eliminate them, you don't have to eliminate mind altogether.
Okay, yeah. So they are created by the mind. They are created by the mind. They are,
yeah, you could say that they're created by the mind. Yeah.
and that's the case also for positive states of mind.
Yes, exactly. So both of them are created by the mind. So therefore, by understanding more about the mind and by understanding how the mind does that, how the mind creates things, and how we can influence this process of creating or of manifesting and so forth, and how this has to do with our past actions and how our present action will influence this kind of creative process for the future. Then, by understanding this more, then we can indeed stop the mind from creating the negative states and enhance the creation of positive states. And not just that, but we can work towards that there is very powerful, very advanced positive states created.
But would it be the case for a mind stream to eliminate all the good qualities and enhance all the bad qualities?
Yeah, so that's actually not possible. So that's a good news. Like what they talk about often here in Mahayana Buddhism is that we all have Buddha nature. Yeah. So in other words, we all are equipped with all what it needs in order to become a Buddha in the future. Yeah. So if we want to become a Buddha, we have everything we need. It's not something that we have to receive from the outside, but we already have all the potential. This is because we have mind, and because this mind is in its nature pure, all the adventitious stains and limitations can be eliminated, and you can end up with a completely purified mind, which is the Buddha mind. Buddha is simply a state of mind which is completely pure, unlimited. So they talk about this, and then I thought to myself some years ago, yeah, well, they talk about Buddha nature because we are not Buddhas now, but we could become a Buddha if we do something. But then we could also say we all have Hitler nature, because if we do the wrong things, there might be a life where we become Hitler. So for some years I thought like this. Yeah, what's the big thing about Buddha nature? But the thing is that Buddha nature is indestructible, while this, this Hitler nature can be completely eliminated. The Buddha has no possibility to ever become Hitler,
So
while he is a Buddha.
the good qualities would be no advantageous. The positive.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, on one hand, they're obviously a bit advantageous because when we have good qualities right now, yeah, like love and compassion that we feel, or helping others, maybe generosity and so forth. And we can see that sometimes they are there, sometimes they are not there. So they go into a potential state, like when we're overwhelmed by negative states, yeah. So from that point of view, they are advantageous, but at the same time, you could make a case for that they are simply the healthy ways of being. It's not that compassion or generosity is an amazing feat and an amazing practice or something like this. It is what a healthy mind is doing if it is not limited by negativities. Yeah, so from that point of view, you could almost say that these good qualities are in the nature of the mind as well. Yeah, to be checked. Yeah, just something maybe to think about. Like if you get free of your negativities, you will not just kind of sit there and kind of look bland in the distance, but it will make you active. It will make you more compassionate. It will make you more generous. It will make you more open. It will make you more wise, more intelligent, and so forth. Yeah. So I would say that in the end, the good qualities of a Buddha are simply the state of a healthy mind. A healthy mind is simply like that. So what I'm saying is to some extent that if you remove all the negativity, then there is the positive things. You cannot remove the negativity and end up with a neutral mind. If all the negativity, all the obscuration is removed, there is the Buddha with all his limitless love and compassion. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And one more question. Is this implying that we all will become Buddhas? It's like the sense of life, the meaning of life is to become a Buddha. and this would be inevitable in a way. This would be the purpose.
Yeah, that's a kind of a topic that I can answer short, or we can spend 2 hours on this. So the short term, the short answer would be, we will all become Buddhas if we practice. You could also say we will all become spiritually completely healed and healthy if we take the medicine. As a matter of fact, this was the case in the last eons, in the last millions of rebirths. This was the case. We could at any time have become Buddha by practicing, but we didn't. This is why we are still here. So the Buddha Shakyamuni, he did practice, and that's why he's a Buddha. And we are not, because we didn't practice. We didn't take the medicine, so we are still sick. So you could say on the one hand, it seems to be very difficult to actually engage into practice. It's very rare conditions which we actually have. So we should take this opportunity and use it to the fullest and actually engage into practice. We are actually, this must be a topic somewhere in the program. We are actually incredibly fortunate to not only be human beings, but also to have an interest in spirituality. That's why I said in the beginning, you are here a very specific group here, yeah, to feel that you are a very specific group. So we have this interest, and we listen to some practices we can do, we might even apply them, and then there is hope. But without that, yeah, then just samsara will go on forevermore, as it has done for unthinkable times in the past. And we're all still here. Yeah? So you can take a negative stand and say, like, it's very unlikely that we will get out of here. But at the same time, it was also unlikely for the Buddha Shakyamuni, and he's out. Not only is he out, he is completely enlightened. That's the short answer.
Okay.
I think the transmission is getting worse. Huh? I think my camera is kind of getting slow, isn't it? Is it kind of, is the image like jumping or something?
Yes, it is.
Yes, a bit. Yeah.
Strange, huh? Anyway, maybe we can leave it here for this time anyway. I don't know if you need any points to discuss in the discussion group, or what you're gonna do. You're gonna watch another video next time in the discussion group, or what are you gonna do? Yeah?
We will need some discussion points if you would give us.
Okay.
Be very helpful.
Yeah. So I can remember from my own experience that it was quite how you say, disturbing or quite shocking to be introduced to this concept that there is no beginning. So which means that we individually, like I have no beginning. So that's quite a thing to say, I would say. So maybe this is something you can discuss. And in other words, what this means is to really kind of put it on the table when you feel like this is just completely unfeasible. This can't be. There must be a first moment and so on. So that's really something quite important to think about. Like any other religion, I don't know, maybe there's some Indian religions who say similar things, but any other religion would give you a first moment, yeah, where God created the world and stuff like this. So that's something to think about. Like how in other religions they have actually this need so much that there's a first moment, that there must be a creator God. Of course, the problem is that this creator God itself is without beginning, or is beyond time or something like that. Yeah. So it seems like the problem is just coming to a different level. But anyway, this is something that seems to be a need in human beings, that there is a beginning. And now Buddhism says there is no beginning. We don't have a beginning. So maybe this is something to discuss. And maybe one can do this by way of thinking about what kind of implications this would have. And what would this tell me about myself, that I don't have a beginning? What would it tell me about myself, that I was conscious and had experiences before I was born into this body? What would that mean? And stuff like that. I think it's good the question that you raised about that the afflictions are also mind and yet they're adventitious. So how does this work? So maybe that's also a good point to discuss further. Yeah, how does this work? That that very thing that I want to extract from the mind, that I want to purify out of the mind, is actually mind. So how does that work? Maybe that's a thing to discuss. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Can you just repeat the last part of the second question topic, please?
The second question, like it was, I think Marius had this question, if I'm not wrong, that the negativities that we try to eliminate are also mind. Like, isn't that contradictory? Like, wouldn't that mean that you have to eliminate the mind in order to get rid of the afflictions or of the negativities? Yeah? So how does that work? Maybe that's something you could discuss. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And then
Cool.
the one with observing the children. That is another point.
Yeah. Okay. Like to discuss. Maybe people want to share their experiences about children. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I like it. Mm.
Okay, so this would be enough. Yeah, or
Maybe we focus on the first two because last time we had to hurry a bit, and if we comprehensively discuss the first two, we had enough time maybe to add the third one, and if not, we just go in steps with the first two.
Yeah. Magda said that we had 3 discussion points last time, and it was not enough time for all of them to be discussed. So 2 discussion points would be maybe better, just 2.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to discuss this one. I'm just giving you, like, if you have questions out of yourself, yeah, then I'm also fine with that.
Yeah.
I think the one without beginning is that there's no beginning is something troubling for Western for a normal person anyway. So maybe that's an important one to look at. But anyway, whatever comes up within your group, you know. I think I understood from your email anyway that the time was not enough. Maybe watching the video took like 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something, and then you had only 1 hour to discuss, and you would have needed more time for that. So whatever is good for you, you know, do that. Yeah. And so what I understood is that so this was not the second kind of teaching session on this topic. Next time we're going to have a discussion group. And then the third one is going to be again a teaching session on this topic. And so therefore whatever is left as questions from your discussion group that you do next time can be answered there. And that's gonna then that teaching session will be the end of that module, isn't it?
Yes.
And then afterwards we would have another teaching session starting a new module, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So that's cool. Let's do like that. And as I said, next time I cannot, so next Tuesday you're going to do discussion group, but then Tuesday in 2 weeks I'm not here, so maybe we do Wednesday. No, I think you wrote that you want to do Wednesday then.
Yes. That would be the problem. So.
All right. Cool. Then we can do like that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for everything.
Maybe just for a minute or so we can wrap it up by doing a dedication.
Yeah.
That's something what people would like to do. I think you did this even in the discussion group, which I found very good. So just so like kind of bringing to mind that we had some quite interesting and rare interaction here. We did something very, if you like, something very special, something that is not so common in our lives. And so we explored many things, we heard many things, and so whatever understanding we have generated in this afternoon or in this evening, we dedicated that we will try to get this understanding deeper, to go on with that, to explore these topics further, to get a deeper understanding, a broader understanding. And also, whatever understanding we got, we try to take it kind of like let's say personal, in the sense of that we will try to use this understanding or integrate this understanding into our daily life, and also to whatever we understood here today, to prove this or to check this against our real life experience, and to try to improve our lives by these kind of teachings or by these kind of methods and so forth. That we ourselves become more happy, more positive, and can also spread this out to the people around us in our working space, family, friends, and so forth. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good discussion group next week.
Thank you, and have a nice evening.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
See you next time. Bye. Thank you, Tharchin. Bye.